If the Steelers walk out of the 2026 NFL Draft with this class, we might be looking at one of the most physical and dominant rosters this franchise has built in years. And it all starts with a shocking first-round decision that not everyone is ready for. The latest internal projections surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers draft strategy are starting to paint a very clear picture of what this franchise is preparing to do heading into the 2026 NFL Draft. And the biggest headline right now centers on a bold and physical offensive identity shift that begins with one name: Denzel Boston. According to the detailed mock scenario laid out, Pittsburgh is expected to stay put with its first-round selection and target the Washington wide receiver, a player who has quietly become one of the most closely monitored prospects by the organization throughout this entire pre-draft process. This is not just speculation built on surface-level scouting. The Steelers' interest in Boston runs deep. He is one of the very few projected first-round talents who checked every box in Pittsburgh's evaluation system, including a top 30 visit and a formal meeting during the NFL Combine. That level of access is not handed out casually, and internally, it signals a player who is firmly on the radar as a potential cornerstone piece. If you're a real Steelers fan, smash that like button right now and drop your take in the comments. Are you all in on this bold direction? Or is this a massive gamble that could backfire? I want to hear you loud and clear. Now, what makes this potential selection even more fascinating is how it challenges the conventional thinking about what this offense needs. There has been a strong argument among analysts and fans that Pittsburgh should prioritize a smaller, quicker receiver to complement the current group. But inside this projection, the belief is clearly different. The Steelers appear ready to double down on size, strength, and physical dominance, pairing Boston with DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. would create one of the most imposing wide receiver trios in the league, a group built not just to catch passes, but to impose their will in the run game and wear defenses down over 4 quarters. And that's where the deeper strategy starts to emerge. This isn't just about adding another receiver. It's about redefining how Pittsburgh wins games. The idea of shifting Pittman into a more consistent slot role, similar to how veterans like Larry Fitzgerald and Adam Thielen extended their careers, opens up a new layer of versatility in the offense. Pittman's size, route-running intelligence, and physicality could allow him to dominate in short and intermediate areas, while Boston stretches the field and wins contested catches on the outside. Boston himself is not the limited straight-line receiver some might assume when they see his 6'4" frame. The evaluation points to a player with surprising flexibility, someone who has been used in multiple alignments, including the slot, and even contributed in special teams as a punt returner. His 77% contested catch rate in college stands out as elite production, and it reinforces the idea that he could quickly become a reliable target in high-pressure situations. What's equally important here is how this move could unlock other players already on the roster. Roman Wilson, for example, has yet to find his footing in the league, but much of that struggle is attributed to being misused as an outside receiver. By adding another big-bodied target like Boston, the Steelers would essentially force a realignment that puts Wilson back into a natural slot role, where he thrived in college. This isn't just about adding talent. It's about correcting past developmental missteps and maximizing the roster as a whole. And the physical identity doesn't stop at wide receiver. The mock draft continues with an aggressive move to secure offensive line help early, trading up for guard Kalen Rutledge, a player described as a long-term solution on the interior. The comparison to Mason McCormick highlights the type of lineman Pittsburgh values: tough, technically sound, and built for trench warfare. The message is consistent across every move. This team wants to dominate at the line of scrimmage. Defensively, the addition of Traden Stokes brings versatility and athleticism to the secondary, with the potential to develop into a future starting free safety. Meanwhile, Darrell Jackson Jr. is viewed as a developmental defensive tackle who could eventually anchor the interior once veteran contracts begin to expire. These are not flashy picks, but they reflect a long-term roster-building philosophy rooted in depth, adaptability, and succession planning. Even at quarterback, the approach is calculated rather than desperate. Selecting Drew Aller in the middle rounds represents a low-risk, high-upside investment. The expectation is not immediate impact, but rather a developmental timeline where he can refine his mechanics and understanding of the game before potentially competing for a starting role in the future. It's a patient strategy that aligns with the overall tone of this draft plan. As this entire projection comes together, one thing becomes undeniable. The Steelers are not chasing trends. They are building an identity: bigger receivers, stronger linemen, versatile defenders, and developmental depth across the board. It's a blueprint designed for durability, especially in a division like the AFC North, where physical football still defines success late in the season. Now, the question shifts from what the Steelers might do to whether this is the right path forward. Is committing to size and physical dominance the move that puts Pittsburgh back into true contention? Or are they passing up on the speed and explosiveness that defines today's NFL offenses? What do you think about the idea of Denzel Boston being the first-round pick and this entire direction for the team? And as this projection continues to unfold, what becomes even more intriguing is how the Steelers are quietly setting themselves up for flexibility across every phase of the roster, especially when you look at the Day 3 selections and the calculated risks being taken with developmental players. This isn't a draft class built just for immediate headlines. It's structured to sustain competitiveness over multiple seasons. And that philosophy becomes even clearer the deeper you go into these picks. When Pittsburgh targets a quarterback like Drew Aller in the 4th round, it's not a move driven by urgency, it's driven by opportunity. The evaluation suggests that Aller is a player who hasn't reached his ceiling due to inconsistent coaching and limited support at the college level. The Steelers see a scenario where he can sit, learn, and rebuild his fundamentals under a more structured system, potentially even learning behind a veteran presence. That kind of environment could completely reshape his trajectory. And if it works, you're talking about landing a starting-caliber quarterback without spending premium draft capital. Then you look at the continued investment in the trenches and depth positions, and it reinforces that same long-term mindset. Travis Burke, selected later in the 4th round, is viewed as a strong athletic tackle prospect who has already drawn significant interest from the organization, including a top 30 visit. That matters because it shows the Steelers are not just reacting during the draft. They are executing a plan that has been built through months of evaluation and direct interaction with these players. By the time we reach the 5th round, the selection of Ephesians Prysock adds another layer to an already deep secondary. And this is where roster awareness really stands out. The Steelers are not drafting him to start right away. They already have established players at the position. Instead, they're identifying traits: length, athleticism, developmental upside, and trusting their system to refine those tools over time. It's a move that speaks to organizational confidence in player development rather than desperation for immediate production. One of the most aggressive and telling moments in this entire mock comes with the second trade-up on Day 3. Moving up to secure Will Kachmarek shows that the Steelers have specific targets they are not willing to risk losing. Kachmarek is described as one of the best blocking tight ends in this class, and that fits perfectly with the identity Pittsburgh is trying to build. But what makes him even more valuable is his ability to serve as a reliable possession receiver if needed. He's not flashy, he's not going to dominate headlines, but he's exactly the type of player that keeps an offense functional when injuries hit. That kind of foresight is what separates good drafts from great ones. As the draft winds down, the selections of Caden Prather and Jordyn Duggar bring a mix of special teams impact and local connection. Prather offers immediate value as a potential punt returner and a depth receiver with some upside in route running, while Duggar, a Pittsburgh native, represents more than just a roster addition. He's a cultural fit, a player who understands the city and could carve out a role through effort, particularly on special teams early in his career. When you step back and look at the full picture, this mock draft is not about one flashy move or a single star player. It's about building layers. It's about creating competition at every position, reinforcing physicality on offense, adding versatility on defense, and taking smart, calculated swings on high upside prospects. The potential addition of Denzel Boston may be the headline, but the real story is the structure being built underneath that headline. This is a roster that, if this plan plays out, would be tougher, deeper, and far more adaptable than what we've seen in recent years. It's a team designed to control games, especially in cold weather, late-season situations where physicality and depth often decide outcomes. And in a division like the AFC North, that approach could be exactly what's needed to separate from the pack. Now, everything comes down to execution. Draft boards never fall exactly the way teams expect. Trades can shift the landscape in seconds, and one unexpected pick can change everything. But if the Steelers manage to come away with a class even close to this projection, they won't just be adding talent. They'll be reinforcing an identity that could define the next era of this franchise. So now I want to hear from you, because this is where it gets real. If this ends up being the direction the Steelers take, how would you grade this entire draft class? And do you believe this physical, long-term approach is enough to bring Pittsburgh back into championship contention? And if you want to stay on top of every move, every pick, and every breaking update, make sure you subscribe, drop a like, and click on the video that's on your screen right now, because the latest Steelers news and analysis, you're only going to find it right here.